Craving is neurochemical fluctuation, bodily urge, a flicker in consciousness. Craving arises before language, before meaning, before me. A chemical shift in the brain, a tightening or warmth in the body, a brief ripple in awareness, that is all. It is no different from hunger, fatigue, an itch. Craving does not say, I need this to be whole. I am incomplete without this. I must chase. Those sentences come later. They are added. The mind takes a neutral signal and turns it into a personal story. Now craving becomes longing. Longing becomes identity. Identity becomes suffering. Reality did nothing. The body did nothing wrong. Consciousness merely noticed a movement. The disturbance is not the craving. The disturbance is the psychological claim, this is about me. When craving is seen before interpretation, it has no weight. It rises, it passes, it leaves no scar. No suppression, no indulgence, no strategy, just seeing. And when something is seen completely, the mind cannot continue its deception. That is the end of it. Craving appears not as a problem, not as a command, just as a movement, a sensation in the body, a neurochemical rise and fall, a flicker in consciousness, that is all. At this point, nothing is wrong. Then the mind enters. The mind says, I want, I am missing, I will be complete when I get. This means something about me. Now craving becomes longing. Longing becomes identity. Identity becomes pursuit. Pursuit becomes suffering. Understand this clearly. The world did nothing. Reality did nothing. The sensation did nothing. The corruption happened after the sensation, not before it. Craving itself is innocent. The interpretation is violent. When there is clarity, craving is seen like hunger or fatigue. It arises, it moves, it dissolves. No story, no me, no chase. The problem is not desire. The problem is the psychological ownership of desire. Freedom is not suppression. Freedom is seeing. When seeing happens, the mind has nothing to add. And when nothing is added, suffering has no place to stand. That is the whole thing. First, what actually happens? Suppose you suddenly want sugar. Before words appear, something happens in the body. Blood sugar dips slightly. Dopamine anticipation circuits activate. Memory associates sweetness with relief. This creates a physical sensation, a slight restlessness, a pull. At this stage, there is no problem. It is like an itch, hunger, sleepiness. This is what is meant by neurochemical fluctuation, bodily urge, a flicker in consciousness. It's just a signal. Then the mind interferes. Now the mind speaks. It says, I need this. I shouldn't feel this. Why am I like this? I'll feel better once I get it. This is the crucial moment. The mind turns a signal into a story. A sensation becomes lack, meaning, identity, urgency. Now suffering is born. Craving itself is not psychological. Craving becomes psychological only when thought claims it. Without thought, craving rises. Craving falls. Nothing is damaged. With thought, craving becomes my problem. Time is created. Past regret, future hope. Conflict appears. Simple analogy. Think of a notification sound on your phone. Ping. That's craving. If you hear it and do nothing, silence returns. Start thinking, what if I miss something important? Anxiety begins. The sound didn't create anxiety. Your interpretation did. So, craving is not asking you to obey or resist. It is asking you to see. Seeing means letting the sensation be, not naming it as me, not moving toward or away from it. When this happens, something shocking is discovered. Craving cannot survive attention without interpretation. It needs thought to stay alive. Craving is a wave. The mind builds a house on the wave and then complains that the house is unstable, especially to sex, validation, fame, power, money. In fact, these are the clearest places to see it because the charge is high. Let's go step by step, very plainly. What is common to all craving, food or fame? Whether it is sex, approval, attention, achievement, being seen as someone, the first event is always the same. A bodily neural activation. For sex, hormonal surge, imagery triggered, physical arousal. For validation, tightening in the chest, anticipation of approval, dopamine rise at the thought of being seen. For fame, fantasy of recognition, pleasure imagined in future attention. At this stage, no psychological suffering yet, just energy moving, where it turns toxic. Then the mind says, "This proves my worth. Without this, I am nothing. I must get this. If I lose this, I am finished." Now the urge becomes identity. This is the corruption. Sex is no longer sensation, it becomes self validation. Validation is no longer feedback, it becomes existence. Fame is no longer exposure, it becomes immortality. Now you are trapped. The brutal truth. The body wants release, the mind wants meaning, and meaning is where suffering lives. The body never says, "Make me important." The body never says, "Be remembered." Those are thought inventions. Why these cravings feel stronger? Because they are socially reinforced. The world says, "You are somebody if," "You matter when," "You are successful once." So the mind fuses sensation plus image plus future plus self. That fusion feels overwhelming. But again, look carefully. The sensation itself is brief. The story prolongs it. Seeing it directly, this matters. When sexual desire arises, feel it in the body. Do not narrate. Do not justify. Do not suppress. You will notice it peaks, it moves, it fades. Same with validation, same with ambition, same with fame fantasies. Nothing needs to be done. Sex, validation, and fame do not enslave you. The belief that they complete you does. And the moment this is seen, not intellectually, but directly, the mind stops converting sensation into suffering. Not because you forced it, but because it has nothing left to say. That is freedom. So, craving is not a command and not a problem. It is a brief chemical and bodily movement noticed by awareness. Suffering begins only when thought claims the movement as personal, adds meaning, and turns sensation into identity and pursuit. When craving is seen before interpretation, nothing needs to be done. It rises, it passes, and it leaves no trace. So, craving begins as a simple event, a chemical shift in the brain, a bodily pull, a brief ripple in awareness. By itself, it is neutral and short lived. The trouble starts when thought interprets this movement as my lack or my need. Meaning is added, identity forms, and pursuit begins. Seen without interpretation, craving has no authority. It appears, moves, and dissolves on its own, leaving consciousness untouched.